We spent a lot of time on the show yesterday taking calls from you, asking what you thought about the city's plan to, I don't know what you called it, re-pedestrianize parts of Sainte-Catherine Street. Most of the reaction from callers was negative. We heard as well from the city councillor in the area talking about the fact that he had not been consulted. We heard from a couple of restaurant people saying they had not been consulted. And we also heard from the Chamber of Commerce of Metropolitan Montreal. And I find it kind of telling that the first couple of sentences in their press release concerning this was, they are cautiously welcoming the proposal for the redevelopment of Sainte-Catherine Street West. Michel Leblanc, president of the Montreal Chamber of Commerce, he is on the line right now. Michel Leblanc, thank you for your time today. What I said yesterday when I first read the statement was, I think more often than not, the Chamber of Commerce is supporting the city of Montreal. This is a little different. Why?
Well, maybe you don't follow us that much because we've been very critical about the lack of fluidity on the streets recently. So we've been criticizing the city. On this, what we're saying is, all across North America, but also obviously in Europe, we're transforming main streets and we are making sure that we create those zones where people will be able to walk. Now, it has to be discussed. Is it all year long? Is it just on weekends? Is it completely on the entire downtown? Well, the city is saying 2 spots, but 2 spots means there will be no fluidity on Sainte-Catherine where you can go by car. So the discussions has to take place. The real consultation has to take place. And we must look at the fluidity of the entire zone, not just on Sainte-Catherine. So at this time, I think that the reaction of the people that are upset is completely realistically, they have not been consulted, so it makes sense. We have to have this real discussion, this real consultation, so the city should wait and should hear what people have to say, and then we can make the best decision.
Okay, explain what you mean, because that's a bit of a vague word, fluidity. We've heard it before. What does that mean as far as you're concerned when you talk about the street?
Well, it means that if you are by car, that you have an impression that you're moving. Not that you're speeding, but just that there's movement on the street. If you are delivering something with a truck, or if you are a Uber or a taxi, that you can stop and not block completely the area. And at this moment, what's happening is because of the lack of coordination with the road work and because of all these lane that we are taking away from cars to make sure that either it's for bicycles, for pedestrians, or even for just planting a tree or flowers. Well, what we end up doing is getting a full-time congestion in many parts of the downtown. Now, on Sainte-Catherine, if we say we're going to pietonize few areas, 2 more areas, we're just going to add to this kind of complete congestion of the downtown. It's going to affect the decisions by employers to bring back their employees or to invest in the downtown. Employees are reluctant to come back, and they can use public transit, obviously, but public transit has its limit. People are not always using it. So at this moment, the downtown is a jam. We need to have a proper discussion about how we're going to move ahead with, again, the fluidity of movement in the downtown area.
So let me bring up the other issue here that seems to be a sticking point, and that's this whole issue of consultation. I read the mayor's release, the press release. I heard what you said during your press conference. The city contends that there has been consultation. I think Robert Baudry said they've been talking about this for 2 years. So what's this whole idea of no consultation? What's really happened here? Were you consulted?
Well, a real consultation is you come up with a proposal, that's your preferred proposal, and you ask the media to react. What the city did was to have all sorts of hypotheses, all sorts of scenarios, and saying, well, you have the chance to react to different scenarios. Even us at the chamber, and we follow that all the time, we were not aware that the city was going to choose that scenario, and we did not react to that scenario before. So again, you can say we've been discussing the topic for 2 years. It doesn't mean that that's consultation. The real consultation is, I have a proposal, I have a plan. How do you find this plan? What could be improved? Is it a bad plan? That's real consultation. It doesn't need to take 2 more years. It could be a few months. But we need to have a real discussion. And lastly, we need to hear the real employers and retail stores owners, the people who are there, and not just speaking to some representatives somewhere. This is really important. I suspect that there'll be less opposition, and that would help the city when people have real numbers. How is it happening on other main streets around the world when you have those pedestrian places? Maybe it's positive, but we need to have the numbers. We need to have some facts so that we can take the best decision.
What do we make of the city's decision, as it seems, as you just pointed out, and as I said, I talked to a couple of business owners yesterday, that the city completely ignored. They talk about citizens who live in the downtown core, but there was no mention of actual merchants, small shop owners, etc. What do you make of that city's decision not to consult with them?
Well, I think the city over the last year, has shown that there's not a lot of sensitivity to small stores. We've seen that with the Grand Prix event with the restaurants and the terrace. We've seen that on other occasions. And I think the city should look into really what is cultural kind of approach to businesses is within the city. And secondly, it has to listen and eventually abide by what the people are saying. We're seeing that on Saint-Hubert. The city did put in place a pilot project. They consulted before, they consulted after. The merchants are saying we don't want to have a pietonized streets on the summer. Well, the city says, well, we think it's better that we maintain our approach and we are not listening to you. It's not good to do that. So I think the city has to look into itself, its own processes, and listen to the shop owners, but also come up with real study, real numbers. They might be a good case for pietonization of certain areas of St. Catherine, but the demonstration has not been made.
What do you make of the city's contention, though? Because then they do this more often than not. They point to other cities that have done the same kind of a thing and suggest, well, it's working there, so clearly it could work here. Does that make any sense?
Well, the difficulty that I have with that argument is that the Montreal downtown is jammed right now. And that's something, when we compare with other cities, and I've compared with sometimes other U.S. cities, you have back alleys on the entire lane. So if you're a store, you can have deliveries at the back. There's other parallel streets that are really transit streets where you can have movements. So the dynamic in Montreal is we took away lanes on Maisonneuve. We're taking away lanes on Saint-Jacques, Saint-Antoine, Viger. We're transforming the downtown into a jammed area. So you cannot look only at the impact on St. Catherine and the merchants on St. Catherine. That's why I was saying we need to look at the fluidity of movements of cars, trucks, Ubers, taxis, and of course bicycles. But in Montreal, we're having a problem right now. The downtown is getting stuck, and it's getting worse months after months.
So let me ask the question, because we're going to run out of time. Where do we go from here? We've seen negative reaction, not just from the Chamber of Commerce, as I said, from a variety of different stakeholders here. What's next? What happens next?
I hope that the mayor says, okay, we're stopping. We will wait a few months. We will come up with the proposals that we think, the scenario that we're proposing, and we'll listen and then have the proper consultation. Groups, individual restaurants, store owners, business owners downtown will come forward with their views, and then the city can improve. And at the end, really say, okay, here's the conclusion of that consulting processes, and here's what makes sense. But right now, we need the city to halt and listen.
I would be remiss if I did not ask you, because a lot of people upset with this administration, the mayor, already looking ahead to next year's election. Your name has been mentioned as a possible candidate to run for mayor. I haven't heard much from you on that. How do you answer that question? Would you be interested? Are you interested?
My answer is I'm not interested. I hope there'll be great candidates. I'd say we need change in Montreal. It may be the same administration, but it will have to change its approach. I think at this moment, it's too early. There'll be a good candidate, I'm sure. I mean, it's a great job to be mayor of Montreal, but it's not for me.
Are you saying I'm not interested, period, or I'm not interested yet?
I'm not interested, period.
Okay.
It's a great job, but it's not for me.
Mr. Leblanc, thank you. Really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a good day.